Sorry for interrupting.
JessConstantino, yeah.
Hello, my beautiful YouTube family. Welcome back to my channel. My name is JessConstantino, and I wanted to talk to you guys today about something that to this day still affects me greatly. I thought that I would share it with you because there might be some other parents out there who have gone through this situation that could relate, or even prospective parents that have a child with a visual impairment or a child with a disability that might be looking at having a similar situation. And it might be something that is concerning and is putting a lot of stress on you. So this video is for all my mama bears and papa bears out there, or even just people that want to understand what the experience is like being a parent of a child with a disability or a visual impairment. So I had a memory come up on my Facebook feed. And even just thinking about it 10 years later, it still makes me emotional. It makes me emotional because it was such a stressful time for me in my life. I felt incredibly alone, even though my parents too had gone through it with me. So my son was born with a visual impairment, and being that my condition is genetic, I was praying and praying that he wouldn't get it, but I was well aware of the risks and the odds that he could be born with it. So when he was born, one of the first questions we asked was, does he have aniridia? And so the doctor came in, the pediatrician came in, and he looked in my son's eyes and he said, yes, he does not have any irises, so he does have aniridia. My son was being treated for his eye condition at the Children's Hospital in Los Angeles. It's called CHLA. And I believe it was very close to when he was 3 months old, we had a checkup, and they wanted to look in his eyes. They wanted to do an exploratory eye surgery. And for me, I was just sitting there during this appointment going, you can't take my baby. You can't take him away from me and put him under anesthesia and put him to sleep. I'm a very overprotective mom. But more than that, my son, when he was born with very low to no muscle development. He was only 3 weeks premature. However, the reason he was only 3 weeks premature is because from my 34-week ultrasound to my 37-week ultrasound, he did not develop any muscle tone. And that is the stage where they are supposed to be developing and learning to move around. And he wasn't following that timeline. So at my 37-week ultrasound, my OBGYN was very concerned about this. And he said because he had no muscle development from the time he was 34 weeks, he was technically a 6-week preemie. He was considered a 6-week preemie. And they said that you have interuterine growth restriction. And when I asked what that meant, they said that really it's just a fancy term that means they don't know what's wrong. But for whatever reason, he was not getting the nutrition inside of me that he needed to develop properly. And they could monitor him better from the outside than they could from the inside. So my OBGYN opted to do a emergency C-section. Now the reason he wanted to do an emergency C-section and not just induce me and have me go through regular labor and delivery was because at that ultrasound, at my 37-week ultrasound, he was not face down the way that a baby is supposed to be when they're ready to come out. He was instead head up. And they didn't want me to have to deliver in a breech position. So instead of inducing me and putting me through labor and delivery, they decided it was safer to do a cesarean section. Now, during that night, I was really stressed, but I could feel my son just moving around like crazy inside of me, and he was just doing flips and flips and flips. And when he came out, when they pulled him out of me, he actually was face down or head down the way that a child is supposed to be when they're born. But I have always said that it is probably a good thing that we had a C-section instead of, or I had a C-section instead of having him born naturally, because of his no muscle development, he was very flopsy. He was like a rag doll. He literally, he was like he had no muscle tone. So he had no ability to hold his head up. He had no ability to nurse like a normal child. His cheek muscles weren't developed. So he had a real hard time latching on. And because of that, my milk production didn't come in like it was supposed to. So we had a lot of issues with his growth right away. He was 5 pounds 2 ounces when he was born, but within the first 24 hours, he lost a whole pound. So he was 4 pounds 2 ounces. And the fact that he wasn't eating the way he was supposed to, he did not cry. He did not have the muscle strength to cry when he was hungry like a normal baby would. So I would have to feed him every 2 hours. I would set an alarm and I would have to make sure that he had nutrition in him every 2 hours. Otherwise, they said he would have failure to thrive. So it was extremely, extremely stressful for me, especially the first 6 months of his life. And so when I'm sitting in this appointment with him, talking to these eye specialists, and they're telling me, we're going to put him under anesthesia and he is going to have this exploratory eye surgery when he was 3 months old, my mama bear sensors just kind of went haywire. And I was like, no, you can't do this. You can't put him under anesthesia when he's so little and he has no muscle strength. And what if he doesn't wake up? What if there's problems? And as I always do, I did not question the doctors at that moment. I said, can I go home and think about it? And they said, sure. And so I went home and I did what I do whenever I'm faced with a stressful situation that I don't have enough knowledge about and I want to understand more what the situation holds. So I went home and I researched. That is how I cope with a lot of my stressful situations throughout my life. So he was still in preemie clothes at this point. He still was very small. I can't remember what he weighed at this point, but he was still underdeveloped. And I started reading through articles of what anesthesia does to a preemie, and it scared the crap out of me. Legitimately scared the crap out of me. A lot of them said that a preemie, their heart muscle may not be developed properly, their lungs may not be developed properly, their brain might not be developed properly, and all of these things are muscles. So the fact that he had no muscle development, even though he wasn't a normal preemie, it still scared me because I didn't know what the risks were. I didn't know what the risks specifically for my son were. And that to me was terrifying. It did say that at 6 months, a preemie baby is more at the normal birth weight of a normal born child. So at 6 months, it is more tolerable for them to go under anesthesia at that point. And so I took all this information and I went back to the eye doctors at CHLA and I said, here, this is what I found. This is my son's situation. He's underdeveloped. He doesn't have enough muscle strength. We don't know what his heart muscle is like. We don't know what his lungs are like. Yeah, it seems like he's normal in those areas, but we don't know. And so I asked them if we could wait until he was at least 6 months old. And they said yes. But at 6 months old, he had to have this exploratory eye surgery. It was very important to them for them to know what his eyes, the total condition that he was born with. They really wanted to know what it all was. So it was very important to them, to the doctors, to be able to have this exploratory eye surgery when he was 6 months old. And I said, okay, that's my compromise. My compromise is I'm not ready to have my baby go under anesthesia right now, but at 6 months old, he should be more normally developed. And I will compromise with the doctors and let them do the exploratory eye surgery on him then. So I will also insert a picture of the day of the surgery. It was in April of 2013. He was pretty much right at 6 months old when they did it, maybe a couple days shy of 6 months old. And he had these cute little, they put him in these little tiger pajamas. It was so adorable. But still, like, when I went and I took him into this hospital and they started preparing him for the surgery, I was so stressed. Like, mentally, I was just not prepared for it. I knew it was coming, but I was not prepared as a mother to watch my baby be willed away and know that he was going to go under anesthesia and know that these doctors were going to poke and prod around in his eyes. And I didn't know what the effects afterwards were going to be like for him, if he was going to be in pain, if it was going to cause any problems. I didn't know. It was terrifying. And I just remember going, and I made my dad stay with me the entire time because my dad had to drive us to Los Angeles. So I made my dad stay with me during the surgery the entire time because I just was so like a ball of nerves. I couldn't think straight. And preparing for that surgery, I remember just like holding him and holding his hands and like kissing on him and loving on him and just being like, I hope everything will be okay. And my dad was trying to comfort me, and it was just a very stressful time. And they finally it was time, and they took him and wheeled him back to the surgery room, and my dad and I went in the waiting room, and I just remember like sitting there and waiting and waiting and waiting, and it felt like so long. Like it was like the longest. I don't even know how long he was back there, probably only like an hour or two, but it was the longest wait of my life. And I was afraid to move because I was afraid that the doctor was gonna come in and tell us the results. And so I was just like glued to my chair. The doctor came out and talked to my dad. They said that he had a small ring of iris. So his iris, when my iris developed, it grew back like a root. It didn't come out and blossom at all. It just grew back like a root. My son's actually grew out and blossomed the way it was supposed to. It was just shrunken. So they said he had a light blue, like sky blue iris, but you had to be in real bright lights to see it. And actually, we have been able to see it. I haven't, but my family has been able to see it when they're in like hospital lights or like really bright lights. They can see a light blue ring around his eye. Here's my son.
Hello. Hi, YouTube. Sorry for interrupting, but I was playing my game and then I came in here because I'm done with math.
Yay! Good job. Enjoy your math tutoring?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you do good?
Yeah.
Good. I love you.
Sorry for interrupting your conversation with YouTube.
That's okay. I was just talking about you.
Well, keep doing it.
No, you gotta go away. But I love you. I love you. I love you.
Okay, love you.
I'll come in and talk to you in just a minute, okay?
Okay, so I'll watch your video when it's post.
Yes, please.
So then I can hear it.
Okay.
I love you.
I love it too. So he had a light blue iris. It was just very shrunken. And they said that he had very tiny cataracts, which weren't like a huge problem at that point because they're so small that they weren't really affecting his vision enough to do anything about it. Because as I have said before on this channel, if you do surgery on one part of the eye, you risk setting off other problems. So they didn't want to do any cataract surgery on him at that point. They just said it was something to be aware of, that in the future he will have to have cataract surgery. But they said at that time he did not have glaucoma, which was a big relief. He did not have corneal disease, which was a big relief, because glaucoma and corneal disease were the two things that really took a lot of my vision away. So it was a pretty good result. I was kind of disappointed that I didn't actually get to talk to the doctor myself, but just knowing that he was done and he was okay and he was going to come into recovery soon and I could see him and hold him and kiss him, like it just made me feel so much better. And that is the only surgery that he has ever had to do, thank goodness, so far in the 10 years he's been alive. I think the part that was the most stressful for me was when I did my research, hearing or reading what the risks were for him going under anesthesia. At that time, they had said that a child can only go under anesthesia so many times before they're 2 years old, before it affects the brain. And they said that every time that they go under anesthesia before they're 2 years old, it can have effects on them. So it really made me nervous because I didn't know if he was going to have some negative effect from the anesthesia. But to my knowledge, like, everything turned out pretty well. I didn't notice any big changes afterwards. The surgery went really well and the results were pretty good in themselves. So all of the stress was kind of brought down after the surgery was over, but just the anticipation of it and the risks that I knew could happen, just remember to pray and think happy thoughts and know that the odds are in your favor. And if you happen to be one of the statistics that your child goes into surgery and has a problem, I can't imagine how hard that would be and how crushing as a parent that would be, because you feel like you are meant to keep them safe. But know that there are a lot of parents that have gone through this too, and there are support systems out there in place for you. And especially with the growth of social media and Facebook groups, and you can find a Facebook group for almost anything. And there is somebody out there who has gone through this situation too. I hope this will help anybody out there who is facing this situation or has faced this situation. Just know that you're not alone and that it is incredibly hard and all of your feelings are very valid. And just try to remain strong for your baby, because they need you and they need you to be strong for them. So I hope this helps you all, and I hope that I can be a support for any of you going through these situations, and I hope this video can help you have some support, and I hope you all will have a great day. Please take care and love your babies. Hold on to them, kiss them as much as you can, because you just never know what the next day is going to bring. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to my channel and join my YouTube family. We would love to have you, and I will post more content like this in the future. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care. Love you guys.
Blind Pineapple Production. Yeah!